It was a beautiful morning when I woke up that day. The sky was clear and the weather was perfect. It had been a hot summer, much more than usual. But myself, as long as so many residents of my town had decided the best place to be was inside an air-conditioned room. It was around midday when I decided to go out for a bike ride. It had been a long, cold winter, and I had sworn to myself that when summertime came, I would make the most of it. I decided to act upon that promise. I forced myself to put the book down that I was reading. I was just pages away from finishing it, but I desired to do something else, something new. I told myself that these solemn, inactive activities were to be best left to the days not as fine as this one. So I set off for a bike ride. I had purchased a new bicycle a couple years ago, and since that, it had mostly rested indoors, much like myself. The bike was a reproduction of a vintage model, which had been made much before my time, and its rustic appearance had stroked my interest. When I had gotten outside, I noticed that the morning beauty had been replaced by cloudy skies. It was not a matter of significance to be determined by mine, but I had a craving that could only be satisfied by the fine-looking burgundy-colored bicycle stored in the back of my garage. I took the bike down to the driveway and past the forested area that surrounded my isolated house in the countryside. The wind shook my hair and blew my clothes against me as I rode down the hill towards the town beneath the mountainside. I had walked down this road many times, and in the past I've even biked down it before when I first bought the bicycle 2 years ago. I reckon the ride would take me less than 15 minutes. I coasted down the hill, managing the curve in the road which controlling braking. Geese above me called as I rode past the cliffside to my right. From atop the mountain, I could see the clusters of houses and buildings which formed the town at the bottom of the valley. It was an incredible sight on a summer's day, such as this one, and I had only been interrupted from its beauty when the sudden drops of rain came upon my body. I watched the water seep into my clothes before my vision was contorted in a series of blurred images. I was sent forward from the blow. Something had struck my bike from behind and thrown me from my seat. My mind didn't have time to process what had happened. I was barely able to react. I was falling, and instinctively I raised my arms ahead of my face to break the fall and keep it from hitting the concrete. My body hit the pavement, and I was tossed into a deep roll down the mountain road. My hands, legs, and arms all drew blood when scraped against the rough pavement. I rolled for what seemed like miles before I stopped. My mind felt fuzzy but remained conscious, and after a few brief moments of confusion, I managed to summarize what had happened in my mind. I realized that I had been hit by something. A vehicle of some sort had been thrown into where I was in the collision. As I was sitting there for the first time since the accident, I felt unbearable pain from the scrape to my bloodified body. When I opened my eyes and looked up, all I could see was darkness. It had been midday when I started my bike ride, and I couldn't comprehend how night had fallen so quickly. The country sky, which normally picked the bright lights from the heavens, was devoid of such light, and not even the moon. Living this part of the country, I had my fair share of eerie outdoorsman experience. The kind you would tell around a campfire over a couple of beers, but those stories paled in comparison of this. My confusion was broke from the surges of pain as they shot through my body. I could not see anything in the pitch black around me, but I could vividly see the straining pain. My shorts and my shirt had protected my body from some of the degree, but I felt most of being bruised and bloodied. I remember memories from my childhood then, experience being lost and alone in the woods around my house, and those painful memories of fear and helplessness surrounded me as they once before. I knew this area off by heart. Yet, in the darkness, I could sense nothing familiar. I was sitting in the fetal position, fearful of the dark abyss which had surrounded me, and scared of causing myself more pain than through movement. I could not see, but I knew I had to do something. Anything. I needed to find help. The town below had a first aid kit there. Also, it had a local clinic, but it was miles down the road. I knew it would be faster to walk home. I had a first aid kit there. My hands and legs burned from an excruciating pain as I tried to push myself up into my feet. and my right leg buckled under my weight before I could do so, sending me falling back onto the ground. My hands burned at whatever they touched, but I could not feel whatever it was they fell upon. They couldn't feel anything. Besides the raindrops which poured down my agonizing face, I was at my limit, and I broke down into tears. I cried so hard that my sobs replaced my agony with silence. I called for help, but I was knowing that no one was here to hear me. But my voice was caught within my throat. I tried to scream, but I produced no sound. But when I moved my hands to my throat to coax the voice from my breath, I found I could not do so. I couldn't express my agony through words, and so I pounded the ground in frustration. My foolish actions were met with only pain, and pain only. And then it was that I discovered that I couldn't hear either. I was deaf, blind, and crippled. And my body panicked at the thought as they all ran through me. My mind processed a life of nothingness and immobility, and those thoughts of helplessness set my mind through a state of terror, which saintly turned when I saw the hope which was a light at the bottom of the hill. My pupils reacted, my eyes struggled to focus on the image of the blurry light in front of me. I was relieved that I could see something, anything. The light grew closer and brighter as it advanced upon me, and this faint gleam, glowing taller, revealed a very blurry image among its dim yellow glow. The image before me was a person, which I had perceived to be an angel. However, it was soon erased from my mind when I comprehended the horrible image in front of me. A pair of grotesque, horribly mangled legs limped toward me. The blood lurched from the beings of the legs as they stalked its way to my direction. I blinked when I saw this, not wanting to believe what I had just seen. But the image was still before my eyes. In a shaking body, the figure slowly revealing itself into the darkness as it grew near. I could see more blood, more gore, and for the first time in my life, I experienced absolute terror. I tried to get up. I tried to run, but I couldn't do so. The muster of strength to do so. My outstretched hand tried to pull my body back, away from the body of pulsing bloods and guts that was coming towards me, but I couldn't do so. In the helplessness that drove me from my sanity, as the body drew closer, the light revealed the figure's torso and lower chest, the horrible figure which tattered the bloody white dress that it was draped upon its bony, pale body. The sound of static accompanied the falling rain that had flowed into my eardrums. Now, headless figure limping towards me. It was shaking uncontrollably in terror as the body's face was unveiled from the blackness. I felt a splash of rain brought into the figure's step in front of me as I caught a glimpse of the pale face, piercing and blue eyes of the monster. But my eyes turned then, unable to bear the seeing of the last few moments of my life. Cold hands tightened around my shoulders before I opened my eyes. From the crest of the tightening hands, as my eyelids coiled back, I saw a flashlight shining into my eyes and the face of a paramedic behind it. I felt the rain fall upon me as I was lifted to the ground and placed gingerly into a stretcher. I could hear raindrops hit the pavement around me as the static of a paramedic's radio as he spoke into it. After weeks in the hospital, I was finally released. I had a friend drive me home after I was discharged, and when I arrived back home, he presented me with a bicycle I had lost in the accident. He told me he went to retrieve it after he heard what had happened, as he thought I would want it returned. He said apart from the scratches, the bike seemed to be in very good condition, but we couldn't seem to get off the pair of small handprints on the right side of the bike's frame. They seemed to have been stained with some sort of chemical and had found its way when he found the bike near the edge of the cliff, where the girl who fell to her death 10 years ago had suddenly fallen from.